Hey guys, Toby Mathis here, and today we're going to go over 3 reasons why your net worth explodes after you hit $100,000. I want to break this into 3 little bite-sized pieces and give you the concepts so that you understand why it is that there really is this inertia in the very beginning that once you get over, you're going to see dramatic increases. In fact, the chart of compounding interest grows like this line being time, this line here being dollars, right? So we want to get over here. Like for really wealthy billionaires, one of the greatest examples is Warren Buffett. I don't think he had $1 billion before he hit 50. But now he's worth, close to $100 billion. It's because his net worth is absolutely taking off. The example that people give that I'll just repeat and steal is a snowball. When you have a really small snowball, it doesn't pick up a lot of snow. But once it starts to get some momentum and starts getting bigger, then every time it rolls over, it gets a ton of snow and continues to grow. And I call that, just simplistically, I'm going to call it the doubling effect. So I'll just say 3 reasons. Let's just say number 1 is doubling. What is doubling? Easiest way to understand this concept is something called the rule of 72. What you do is you take 72 and you divide it by the interest. And that equals the years it'll take for something to double. So let's just say that my interest is 10%. So let's put the number in. Then it'll take me 7.2 years to double. So let's just use some examples, right? Let's say that I have, I'll use $1,000. Here, I'll make a little chart here. We'll just, we'll have some fun. Let's see if I could draw. All right. All right. So if I have, let's just say it's 7.2 years, and we'll just say this is where we start, is right here, or actually we'll start up here. We'll start at, let's say, $1,000. What's another good one? 10,000. Yeah. And we'll do 100,000. So if we start off, then 7.2 years later, and we're doing 10%, then the law of doubling is going to say in 7.2 years, this 1,000 will be 2,000. The 10,000 will be 20,000. The 100,000 is 200,000. So this increased $100,000 in the time it took us to grow $1,000. Small snowball right here, big snowball up here. This is why it really starts to explode. Now you're seeing why this number starts to grow. Now let's take it even further. What if we had 1 million? Now it's 2 million, right? We made $1 million in 7.2 years. This is how the stuff grows. Now if we get to another doubling, so we're at 14.4. Then we get $4,000, 40,000, 400,000. You just made $200,000 in another 7.2 years. Now we're cooking. You see what it is? And that 2 million is 4 million. We just made $2 million in the span of 7.2 years. Same interest rate, that same 10%, same investment, wildly different result. Why? Because it comes down to what we're starting with. You see how this works now? So now we go to, what are we looking at? 21.6. Our next doubling, or so we've done 4 doublings now, and now we're at 8,000. We're at 80,000. We're at 800,000. Boom. And we don't want to forget our little millions over here. Now we're at 8 million. See what happens? I can't get out of the weight of my wealth. Whenever we talk about, nonprofits not being tax exempt, or compounding inside of a 401k or a DB plan, all those things. If we can just grow the money, we get huge results. We always have to figure out, a little bit of tax on these things, unless we're just letting it grow. Hey, we're just letting it compound and grow in a tax-free arena, or we're just tax-free growth, which there is, especially in real estate. But now watch what happens. We get one more. So what are we going to have? We're going to be at 28.8. You've had this stuff for about 30 years. That always seems to be kind of the secret sauce, right? When you hear about people, whoa, what are the categories of millionaires? Well, there was a study of 10,000 millionaires. Top 3 categories were engineers, accountants, and teachers. And people are like, what are teachers doing up there? They don't make a ton of money. No, but they're really good at this. They're really good at starting and leaving their investments for 30 years while they're doing their career without touching it. And watch what happens. That 8,000 never really, it's not really getting started, right? We're looking at that going, oh yeah, that's really exciting, Toby. So I invested 1,000 and it turned into 16,000 in 30 years. Yeah, that's not going to get it done, is it? We're going to have to work our ass off to make sure that we get a bigger amount. How about that 10,000? Well, now it's 160,000. The average American, right, doesn't even have that much. They couldn't even do that. Just start with something. You don't even have to add to it. All you have to do is let it grow, let it compound. Well, there's nothing out there that grows at 10%. The S&P 500's beating that in its lifetime, its history. Sorry, if all you did is stick it at SPY or VOO, you're going to be in this wheelhouse. Here's our big one, though. 1.6 million. Boom. That's why that 100,000 is the magic mark. Look at the difference. If we can get to $100,000, it absolutely explodes. And now rich guy over here, or rich gal, 16 million. They just keep compounding. They don't even know what to do with the money. They're like, I don't even want it anymore. Who do I give it to? Raise your hand. Right? So that's doubling. That's, if you can get that through your head, hey, it's all about time, letting it double again, letting it double again. There's an old, how do you say it, an adage, it was kind of a quiz. Would you rather have a penny that doubles every day for a month or $1 million? And a lot of people would have, well, I want the $1 million. Well, the penny that doubles every day ends up being, I think it's over $3 million or some ridiculous when you get to day 31. Because of the rules of doubling. Every time you double, it just continues. Now it's picking up a lot of snow. Now that little ball is getting big. Like even here, you look at it saying, it's nothing to shake a stick at. But what I would be doing, no matter what, and I know that there's folks that have said this out there, you fight like crazy to build up your little nest egg. You let it grow over time. You continue to dump it and just keep putting into it. Even if all you're doing is taking 10% of your take-home pay. If all you do year after year is do that, you're going to get up into this category. It's going to take a while, but you'll get up into that category. How do we know? Again, teachers. Teachers somehow are more often millionaires than lawyers. Lawyers get paid a lot more. Teachers have more patience and are doing the letting things double. So that's number one, doubling. And I'm just going to give you guys a quote just because I like these types of things. Wealth is when small efforts produce big results. Poverty is when big efforts produce small results. I actually kind of like that. Wealth is when small efforts produce big results. What did you do? You put an account. And it might be that you started here and you did the 10,000. Now we're over 100. Now we're up to 160,000. Now you just keep waiting. All you have to do, small effort, open up the account. Pay it like a bill, even if it's like a cell bill. Hey, I'm just going to pay an amount into there, and I'm going to do it consistently over time, and I'm going to get a nice snowball, and I'm going to let it roll downhill and just pick up a lot of snow. That's what compounding is. That's what doubling is. Once you get your head around it, then you realize it's all about that patience. So, small efforts, big results. Works out super crazy. I wanted to give that one to you. That's the one that makes the most difference. You'll hear it 20 different ways, somebody trying to explain it to you. But what it really comes down to is You gotta be patient. You gotta let things grow over time. If you want to get really, really wealthy and you don't have money, you're gonna have to go out there and find a way to make the money so you can start your snowball. You got to. There are ways to do this, by the way, with leverage, which is one of those things that it's like fire. It could be extremely potent, but it's this, I'll get into that concept in a second because I'll use it as part of scaling up. But let's another quote real quick. Buffett, the stock market is a device for transferring money from the impatient to the patient. All right here. If you could just put it into the market, resist the temptation to mess with it, let it continue to compound, you can maximize it. You can even increase the amount of your return by doing things like covered calls, cash secured puts, being a stock market landlord. We teach all this, by the way, in Infinity Investing. And Infinity Investing was a gold medal book that I wrote. It was a bestseller on Amazon. If you would like a free copy, all you have to do is put free book in the comments below. All you have to write, just type in free book. We'll send you the link so you can get it'll be a PDF version, but you'll get a free copy of the book. If you want to buy the hardbound, it's Infinity Investing. It's still available on Amazon. It's done great, and it still is applicable today as when I wrote it a few years back. All right, scaling up is number 2. So where am I going to write up to? I'm just going to pick a place. When you're investing, scaling actually works really well. And that's because the same investment, I can use these as an example. Here, I'll just do this. The same amount, that same growth, could have such a different impact as far as the size of it growing on each investment. So your scaling works really well when you are passively investing. It's extremely difficult when you're running an active business. In other words, there might be so many people I can serve, but as you're growing your business, you have to have a certain number of employees. You got to make sure that you could service the demand. If I have all salespeople and no support, I'm going to have issues. People complaining. I need to be able to deal with that. There's materials. There's all these things that make it very difficult to scale up. When you are investing and you have large amounts of money that you are investing, it scales up tremendously easily. Like I could do this with $1 billion. I could do this with $1 million. I could do this with $100,000. It's all the same amount of effort. It's pretty much the same thing. Now, when you get to $1 billion, obviously, you're probably going to have money managers saying, hey, let's spread it out amongst multiple things. But you don't have to overly complicate it. You can make it very, very simple. So this type of thing scales up extremely well. And because of that, it's fairly predictable that when you see returns, let's say you see this 10%, what if I can get a line of credit at 5%? And I am investing in things that are returning more. Now, I tend to be debt adverse, but I'm okay with leverage so long as I know that I'm going to get that growth. So I do, like in real estate, you hear people levering up all the time. They buy a building. Rarely are they buying a building with cash. They're generally buying that building with some sort of mortgage to lever up. The same thing can work in investing. The same thing can work in investing. Now, you have to be careful. Anytime you're dealing with debt, it's fire. But if you are consistently getting a certain result and you can get money that is below that amount, your cash on cash return goes up exponentially. In other words, let's just say that I used a line of credit and I did $10,000. So I got my line of credit and I did this $10,000. I'm going to have to pay something. Maybe it's that 5%. So, let's say that the first year you make 10%, so you make 1,000 and it cost you 500. You had to pay, so you ended up with a net of 500, but you had zero money because you borrowed it all. Your return is actually really, really extraordinarily good when you do that. That's why people use the leverage. You could lever yourself into this situation here too. I just be very careful. There's certain things that I might do that in that I wouldn't do others. Investing, if I'm a long haul, I know that statistically I'm going to be up if I can invest for 15 years. So if you're looking at this number, you're looking at this row, and you're saying, this is where I'm going to be, I'm okay. As long as you could support paying that leverage or even pay it off aggressively. I'm okay with it. If it's shorter, then you might want to look at things where it's a higher return in a much shorter horizon, like for example, microloan, short-term debt, things like that. You might get into the 12% category, 10%, 11%, 12% over 2 years, and you're doing it in a much shorter period. I know there's organizations that actually teach that as a way to generate wealth, because you can get a line of credit. You know, you could go over here, you know, you can get over here pretty quick if you're willing to take that risk. Now, I'm just going to say, anytime I deal with debt, you got to be able to pay it back. You can't be reliant on this as the means to paying it back. It's going to allow you to compound a lot faster, but you still want to make sure you're not in a situation where it's going to hurt you. Then, last thing, number 3. I'm just going to put that up here just to make it as confusing as possible. Rich people benefits. Sorry, I put it right through the growing line. Okay, here's one of the benefits of when you get over $100,000. Little expenses, things that used to be a big emergency, that might be like, oh shoot, the water heater busted, isn't a life-altering expense any longer. When you start getting up and you have enough saved up, the little stuff starts to become little stuff. Little stuff seems monumentally huge when you're below that line. And that just comes with, hey, I have enough saved up, I have an income source coming in to where I'm not worried about the small things. And let me put it in a different context so that I don't want to be misunderstood. When you are living off of your investments, so when you are living off of the success of your investments, and by the way, these are all being locked away and allowing them to grow. This is why your net worth is going to explode. These are seeds that you've planted and you're not harvesting them yet. You're letting these things grow for a long period of time. You're going to forget that you got them. Life hack, set up an account, dump 10,000, 100,000, whatever into it, forget that you have it, lose your password for 30 years, check back in, it's a big amount of money, right? That's don't eat your seed, right? That's letting things grow over a long period of time and you're not feasting on it. If you have to live off of this, then a market correction like we had in 2008, which dropped the market 38%, and you're having to spend those dollars when we just had a correction, that's painful. That's what we're avoiding when we have $100,000 set aside that we don't need to live off of. That's a huge benefit, is that I don't have to spend money when I'm forced to. So for example, I have stock, ABC. It's worth $100, but it drops to 70. And I'm forced to pay my bills with that $70. I'm forced to take the loss. When if I had waited, statistically speaking, I'm going to get that 100 back plus a whole bunch more if I can be patient. But if I'm forced to spend it, it could be really, really brutal. And that's why I say when you lock this stuff aside, make sure that you're able to pay your debt or other things on your own. You don't want to disturb the things that you planted. Those investments that you planted, you got to give them time, guys. You got to put them in put them off to the side. Forget you got them. You'll know that you have them, but forget that you have access to it, right? Don't dip into it or you'll be harvesting it too soon. And it's like, it's like fruit tree, right? It's not ready. It's not ripe. You're not going to want those apples when they're just little nubs, right? Don't do it. Don't harvest it. Resist that temptation. You got to let it mature. And that's one of the benefits once you have that little egg of $100,000 plus, is that type of stuff is not as big of a deal. You have other things that you could pay for, but now it's growing on its own. It's not completely destructive to have a breakdown on your car and things like that. So it also comes down to when you have that type of money. I'll just tell you, the first time you hit $100,000 in a bank account, some of you guys will remember that, the peace of mind and the security of knowing that you have that is kind of nice. It actually is a thing. It's all of a sudden you're like, whew. It's kind of like, you're climbing hills and you're climbing up a mountain and you get to one of the peaks and you're like, oh, this is great, right? It was really tough getting up there, but you feel a lot better. Number two, on that rich people benefits, you now have a little more capacity for risk. You're not living off of it. You don't need the money. Maybe you're willing to take a little higher risk for a bigger reward. Maybe you're shooting for that 12%. You're able to do it. You also have access to investments that not everybody has. Once you get over a certain point, you may hit and become what's called an accredited investor. And now you have access to invest in things that the rest of the normal folks don't get access to. Once you have that type of money, you might also find that you have access to cheaper money. One of the funny things I used to do with businesses is I'd put a CD in there. People would say, like, why are you getting a CD? I'd get a line of credit against it. You set up a business and put money in it and then take a line of credit against the CD. Yeah, so I could establish its business credit. And then in a couple years of constantly paying, eventually they're going to say, you don't need to have the security anymore. I take my CD back out and give myself back the money. But what did I just do? I just established a pattern for getting business credit in that business. Well, you could do this individually too. If I have a stock account, for example, let's say that I'm over here. You know what I can do against that stock account? I could borrow about $700,000 at rates that are a lot less than mortgage rates. How do I know? Because I do that. It's called a security-backed line of credit. So you can access funds much cheaper and much easier, so you could take advantage of other opportunities that come along. You see this in real estate all the time. Somebody will go in and they'll buy real estate. They'll improve that real estate. 5 years later, the real estate's gone up in value. You borrow the money, you go out and you buy more real estate. You continue to repeat that process. 30 years from now, I've been paying off on all those mortgages. They're getting paid down to nothing. And it's not me, really. It's the tenants of the properties. But I've accumulated a ton of assets. That's a rich people problem, guys. Once you get up there, you get over that $100,000 mark, you're going to get access to some of these things. And then another one that will make sense to you guys is if I'm having to pay for expertise or education, and I'm paying, let's say, $5,000 a year, if I have $10,000 in my bank account and in my investment account, that's a big chunk of that money. And it's like, oh, why am I doing it? When you get up over here and the bigger, the economies of scale makes those things very insignificant. That's why you see a lot of wealthy people constantly educating themselves, going to conferences, learning about different investing strategies, because it's inexpensive in comparison to what they're able to get out of it. Now, if you do it down here, I would say it's still worth it for you to learn things and get access to different types of investments and also learn the ropes of what it means to be a good investor. But you're going to have to still work your butt off to get money into those and feed those accounts so you can grow. And it really comes down to this thing, accessing kind of the financial tools, the ideas, the knowledge, the group. That is a big thing. And then I'll say the last thing, and then I'll let you guys go. The last thing is you start a accumulation mindset. Once you see how this stuff works, you can't unsee it. Once you experience it, you can't unexperience it. Right? Once you see how it works, you're going to start realizing, holy kashmoli, I want to push a lot more assets into this thing and let it do this doubling. Boom, 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 boom. That's a good thing. What you're not going to do is let your money sit in a checking account, not doing anything. The reason people do that is because they don't realize the alternative of putting into something that is compounding. When something compounds, it's going to grow over time. And again, it's a long time horizon, but the growth, the amount of money you are making, just let's put this in perspective. This person here in the first quadrant up here, they put money in, $1,000. 7.2 years later, they had $2,000. So they, same amount of time as this person made $8 million. It went from 8 million to 16 million, the same 7.2 years. Huge difference. And that's why the net worth just absolutely takes off once you get to right around the $100,000 mark. So I'm just going to say that's why net worth really takes off over 100 grand, because that's where you see the true impact, the true awesomeness of doubling in that compound interest. Hey guys, if you like this information, please like and subscribe. Please share it with anybody. And for my free book, if you want to read Infinity Investing on ideas of how you can get into the world of compounding and growing your assets this way, just write free book down in the comments. I'll send you the link so that you too can get Infinity Investing free. Share it with whoever you want. At the end of the day, we're all in this together. I have this abundance mindset where I think everybody could be wealthy, and I'm not wrong. I think anybody could be wealthy. I think everybody could be wealthy if you do the things that wealthy people do. Good luck.